Hi, I'm Pete Apps, ex-war reporter, defence columnist and British Army Specialist Reservist. And for our very first episode on the road for Battle for the World, I'm in Tampa, Florida for Special Operations Forces Week, looking at how the global special operations community does business, how the technology is changing, and how that feeds into the geopolitics of a world that seems to be becoming more dangerous by the week. In the quarter century since 9/11, America's Special Operations Forces have built a global network of partnerships with other elite units on almost every continent. The result has been relationships that now lie at the heart of how America looks to deter major conflict with powerful rivals including Moscow and Beijing, as well as smaller foes. Increasingly, those relationships are also based on technology, data sharing, and wider business interests, and nowhere is this more evident than during SOF Week, the biggest single conference in the Tampa Bay calendar, attended this year by more than 20,000 attendees looking to buy, sell, and discuss the future of conflict. Here we are at the front of the convention center, first full day of the conference. And as you can see, it really is something of a spectacle. This is the biggest event for quite a lot of the companies that come here because they're selling directly, not just to US Special Operations Command, which is based in MacDill Air Force Base, just over on the other side of the city, but also sometimes to individual formations, not just US, but also we've got Australians here, we've got Dutch, we've got most of NATO, we've got a large number of America's Pacific allies. Tomorrow we're going to have the Philippines will be presenting, likewise the Ghanaians. So you have all of these militaries where you've got elite special operations forces that have very close relationships with the Americans, all coming together, all comparing what each other are buying and comparing how they fight and working out what they're going to do in the years to come. So down here by Tampa Harbor again for the main capability demonstration of the week. So the scenario for this is that the mayor of Tampa has been kidnapped and she's about to be rescued from a variety of the buildings and ships behind us by US Special Operations Forces. So it feels like half of Tampa has come down. We've got a whole bunch of people around, a whole bunch of cameras, but this is really US Special Operations Forces showing off what they do. As I say, they're not giving away too many of their tactics, techniques, and procedures, but a whole bunch of explosions, a whole bunch of people watching, including kids, families, and you name it, all about to unfold in a couple of minutes' time. Talk me through what SOF Week is like.
Yeah.
Because it's a really interesting combination of, that military world, sort of bit of venture capital, bit of a frat party, bit of a whatever. How would you kind of characterize it?
My first word as I started saying, hey, I was coming to SOF Week, is reunion. On the Signal chats with all my buddies, like, hey, we're coming. Like, I can't wait to see you. It's been sometimes like a decade or more before I've seen people, but I do think it's from the military aspect where innovation happens. SOCOM is very interesting and they can rapidly iterate on products. They can reprogram money in a fiscal year where no one else can, so that means they can get the best, they can try it, and it doesn't have to be these multiple year-long programs of record before soldiers get it. And the fact that operators sit next to acquisition people, both in normal times and also at SOF Week, like literally writing requirements for the operators, that's where I think the uniqueness of SOCOM is. But SOF Week is amazing. I mean, you can get any sort of technology you want, from satellites to boats to better plasma on the battlefield for medical reasons.
Luke's firm, Skyfi, specializes in delivering cheap private sector unclassified satellite footage to clients from elite military and law enforcement to hedge funds and insurers. That points to one of the growing trends in modern defense technology, finding cheap private sector options that allow fast iteration and improvement. If you're looking for three of the big themes here when it comes to defense technology, then you've got all three of them behind me. That's data sharing, that's unmanned systems, and it's counter-unmanned systems, so particularly counter-unmanned aerial systems such as drones. So because of the conflicts we've seen, firstly in Ukraine and more recently in the Gulf, everyone is looking for technology that can bring down attacking drones and bring them down cheaply. So what you can see there is autonomous machine guns. So firing often from an automated platform, firing into the sky to bring down drones, using ammunition that will literally burn up and disintegrate before it falls back to Earth so it doesn't hurt people. You've also seen in Ukraine vehicles like these tracked vehicles being used for casualty evacuation, being used to move munitions forward. And then you've got that data sharing piece, which is finding that underlying software and sometimes hardware so that all these pieces of kit and equipment and the soldiers and commanders that are using them can talk to each other. So I'm here now on Scanner Robotics, which is an Israeli firm, and I'm here with the founder, Idan Levy, former Israeli military. Now, we're used to thinking of Israel as being a nation that thinks of itself as battling for survival. Idan, you've now got a bunch of other clients, Indo-Pacific, Europe, who now view that kind of existential fight in a similar kind of way to the way Israel has. Do you want to talk about how that market has developed and the sort of technologies that you're selling into it?
Definitely. So I can see what we see in the maritime domain for the last, I would say, year and a half since we established the company. We see a shift from conventional way of procuring defense systems to a different way of buying or procuring systems that are battle proven. That's one thing. Expediting the processes and trying to be way more efficient, because what we hear a lot is that at the moment they are facing challenges that they hope that they don't have the solution or the way to overcome these challenges, and it becomes a necessity to bring technologies and solutions that can be operated in the battlefield in a very short time frame.
So, I mean, some of this stuff is remote piloted and some of it is autonomous, right? Do you want to talk about how the autonomy picture is evolving as computing gets smaller, the technology is kind of shifting? Because we really are at an inflection point of that at the moment. Right?
Definitely, that's a great question. As we see from our operational experience, we know that different missions require different levels of autonomy. So we are sometimes daydreaming about fully autonomous swarms that are going to solve all our problems, but in a matter of fact, in the operational environment, it must be a combination of autonomy that serves the operator and that reduces the overhead, making the operation process way more efficient, being able to operate many vessels. And then we need the human in the loop, because autonomy lacks human intent. It lacks the ability to get, let's say, thoughtful decisions that are not only black and white, but that are linked to more areas that humans can have decision.
I mean, a lot of the clients you're dealing with in the Baltic and Indo-Pacific are obviously worried about Russia and China. They don't want to get into a war with Russia or China. So there's obviously an element of control that they need to show the ability to kill stuff in a conflict, and also the ability to make sure that they've got absolute control when you're short of conflicts and they don't start something by mistake. Do you want to talk about that kind of dynamic and where the trust issues come in when you've got things like jamming and elements of autonomy?
So I think one of the key things that these countries, that Europe and the Indo-Pacific countries lack right now, is presence. Because a lot of things are happening in the Baltic Sea area and in the Indo-Pacific area, and these countries have no idea of what's going on under the water and on the surface in general. And the first layer to be able to react is to understand what's going on in these domains. They are trying to find solutions that really create persistent presence over time. When you have persistent presence over time, then also the Russia and China and the other countries will think twice before they are going to deploy systems, as they know that you have the ability to understand or to identify what's going on in these areas.
Another firm delivering unmanned attack boats is Britain's Kraken. Its representative in Tampa is former New Zealand soldier Erica Dill Russell.
I've been attending this for the last couple of years, and I came here first on a non-operational posting as the New Zealand Science and Technology Liaison to US SOCOM, and that was absolutely incredible. But we've seen such step change in SOF Week since really 2021, 2022, from what was a sort of just more of a trade show that we were used to coming to, and I was on the government side, so we were talking to a lot of people. They were doing some really interesting things, but it wasn't necessarily as tech forward. We weren't seeing step change every year in terms of the technology that was being deployed and demonstrated. And now I think each year it just revolutionizes.
How important is SOF Week to the defense industry in the Tampa area?
It is. It's very important, and it's not just the Tampa ecosystem. I mean, we have people coming in, as you know, from all over the world for this. It's important to the entire defense ecosystem, but we thrive here with it because we're centrally based where US SOCOM and US CENTCOM are. And so it's very, very important because it allows those individuals that are coming in from other areas to be able to have that time, with those individuals from those entities and be able to commingle with their colleagues they don't see. It's very, very important because it also helps our industry thrive together. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, we all work in this industry to support the warfighter, which is our common cause. And so it allows us all to come together in support of that.
How important is the social side of SOF Week?
I have to laugh at that one. The social side is extremely important. Examples would include clients that I have where I'm trying to meet them just to walk through the network with them on the exhibition floor, but everybody's at the socials, right? And so the socials are probably one of the most important things because you go to the different sessions, you're walking the exhibition floor, but the real relationships are built at the socials. And the only thing that's hard with the socials is there's so many, like I have 6 just tonight alone, that you have to determine which one you want to go first, and you want to try to support. I try to support all my industry colleagues that are having those and invite me, and it's very, very hard, but they are critical. They are a critical component to SOF Week. I would say very important.
Obviously, alongside the trade show and the spectacular and the frat party style drinking, there's also been a bunch of panel discussions and of course a bunch of private discussions around the sidelines. So, lots of fairly generic talk about US partnering with allies. Obviously the Gulf, lots of material being consumed there, lots of weaponry, lots of demand for sensors. Again, in the Indo-Pacific, worries over the future of Taiwan. But actually, if you talk to people, the place they're most worried about in the short term is now Europe. And that's really shifting in the last couple of weeks. So the withdrawal of US forces from Poland, Russia getting increasingly aggressive around the Baltic states, and that's really getting people here a little bit concerned. But of course, for some of the people who are selling, that's also an opportunity to sell kit and expertise into those markets. Here we are at the heart of the conference center, and you can get an idea of size and scale, but also the way in which the defense industry is changing, led by the special operations community, but now going much broader than that. So behind us we've got the really big old defense companies. So we've got Lockheed Martin, for example, there, delivers a bunch of C-130 Hercules, small helicopters, all kinds of stuff to special operations. Boeing, all the other sort of big giants. But then look who we've got here behind us. Google public sector. As late as the 2010s, it was really quite controversial for them to be taking part in defense. They pulled out of contracting for the Pentagon for a bit, but now they're back in delivering secure cloud computing, doing deals with NATO, doing deals with a whole bunch of European nations to provide what they call their secure cloud architecture. That's the secure ability of different systems to talk to each other. And then behind us here we've got Palantir, founded at the very beginning of the war on terror, really built itself a reputation doing targeting for US Special Operations Forces and wider forces during the war on terror, heavily involved in Israeli targeting in various conflicts, sometimes quite controversially. Again, involved in Ukraine from the early days of the Ukraine war, and most recently Operation Epic Fury, that big 39-day campaign against Iran, 13,500 strikes according to US Central Command. And the Maven smart targeting system built by Palantir was at the backbone of planning each and every one of those strikes. Took up so much computing power that the Pentagon's chief AI officer says they're now desperately looking for more AI, for more data centers, more ability to bring computing power forward to the operational user on the ground so that they can actually crunch that data. This is Anduril, another growing player, best known for unmanned weapon systems, but now also branching out into smart glasses and data centers that can be worn by the individual soldier and carried in a vehicle. Talk to me about SOF Week and the special operations community and how how this week feels compared to other things, and how the SOF community feels different to the kind of, I mean, this is sort of defense industry on acid, right, or speed, or something.
Yeah, I think, first of all, this event, I was saying to you before, I've been many times, it gets bigger every year, and I think the technology that is here is becoming more sophisticated every year. And the speed at which the innovation is occurring, from when we launch something here to when it is fielded, oftentimes might be days or weeks. And then the speed at which it's leaving this community is orders of magnitude faster than it's ever been before as well. Such that, what might go into a SOF community might be going into conventional army very, very quickly thereafter.
And talk to me about the way in which the geopolitics is shifting now. We're moving from this environment where small numbers of SOF operators would go off and kill people out in the sort of desert, or maybe you were trying to sort of deal with limited US or British troop deployments, to this new environment where we're trying to deter China, in particular Russia, while all the other stuff hasn't gone away.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are shifting geopolitically, which is changing warfare. The first is mobility. As you look at any fight, wherever it may be, let's take the Indo-Pacific region, you are traveling long distances, you are on small islands, you are on the move. So you're thinking about what can you carry with you? What can be the lightest possible way in which I can operate on the move? I think the second thing that's really interesting is time. What matters more on the battlefield now than anything is an understanding of time, such that I know where something is half a second ago, a split second ago, because that time is then a function of how I can act. And that then means that you need to be bringing that power to make sense of that to the edge. And then of course the third thing that's going on in this entire environment is it's going to be denied, degraded, intermittent. It's going to be blocked. So I'm operating at the edge, I'm operating on the move, it's time sensitive, and it's denied. So it's a huge shift in really every sort of paradigm that was previously in place.
So this is Shield AI's VBAT. This is almost 2-year-old technology already, although it keeps on getting larger and better. This sort of stuff already being used in Ukraine, 12-hour flight time, able to work through jamming, but through its own onboard AI. This is the sort of way in which warfare has been changing in Ukraine. You don't really see the images of these kind of drones because the Ukrainians obviously wanted to keep them under wraps. But actually, for the last 2 years, these have been redefining the way in which war is fought. So Brandon, you're former US Navy SEAL, now founder of Shield AI.
Yes,
Do you want to talk through, how you jumped from leaving the service to starting what is now a pretty substantial sized firm doing interesting stuff in both Europe and the Pacific?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Peter. Look, I'm an engineer by background, mechanical engineering background, was always interested in science and technology. Was getting out in 2015, reading a lot about AI, reading a lot about autonomy. Google had some self-driving cars going around. Decided that AI and autonomy was going to be really like the next internet, and I wanted to be a part of that. I also asked myself, what I wanted to focus on, but Elon Musk did this thing where, very inspired by what he was doing and what he continues to do, but he's like, I wanted to work on the problems that were the biggest problems for humanity, right? Space travel, sustainable energy, the internet, right? That was SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City, X.com, PayPal, XAI now with the internet. And I literally was like, what is a major problem for humanity that Elon Musk is not working on? I was like, oh, he's actually not working on the problem of warfare, right? And like warfare has plagued humanity for 4,000 years. And I was like, this is a worthwhile problem. It's a problem I'm deeply familiar with and wanted to contribute to the solving said problem.
So, I mean, let's talk about that. So we're now in 2026.
Yep.
Europe's looking dodgy. Yeah, you're in Taiwan where people are getting nervous about a conflict, maybe not so much next year, now maybe a couple of years down the line. A lot of this stuff, you've designed this, but you're not building it yet. Talk through where we are in that kind of production curve, computing, because we're in a really interesting
We're not building, we're in development with XBAT. We have our VBAT, which is our reconnaissance drone, does the mission of Predator Reaper for a fraction of the cost. That is operational. We did operations today in Russia, Ukraine, right? Doing targeting operations. We're doing operations with the U.S. Coast Guard today. We did 100,000 pounds of narcotics interdictions last year. Every single one of those missions, GPS communications are jammed. Our AI pilot allows us to maneuver there. We are putting our AI pilot on lots of different platforms. We've done 28 different integrations to date. We're shipping hundreds of AI pilots every month to Ukraine for one-way attack drones. It enables them to operate when GPS and communications are jammed, enables autonomous mission execution, enables swarming. Actually, yesterday we were announced by, did a press release, Office of Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering announced that Shield AI is doing the AI pilots.
Base case scenario that there's going to be lots of conflict going on in the 2030s, or deterrence? Because obviously that has a big impact on the consumption.
Hopefully lots of deterrence going on. But look, the world, you know, I was in Afghanistan in 2013, 2012. I would claim the world is a lot less stable today than it was in 2013. And that is for a number of reasons, right? The growth of our principal adversary in China, the principal adversary to the West, their industrial production capabilities, how they have supported, whether it's Russia or Iran, that it's just a very different picture, and the world is less stable, where you have a real adversary challenging the West, not just the United States, but the broader West, and our value system for the first time, since World War II.
So obviously lots of nations have stands here. We've got Denmark behind us. Everyone is friends, lots of panels with people talking about how well they work together. If we go back to January, and you have Danish Special Operations Forces led by their army chief, head of the army, their former head of special operations, taking up positions in Greenland with some of their European allies to attempt to deter the US under Donald Trump from annexing Greenland when everyone suddenly started worrying that that might be about to happen. Obviously, no one wants to talk about that today, but it gives you an idea of just how incredibly fluid and unpredictable some of those relationships are becoming. So here we are outside at the end of yet another day of SOF Week. So it's been hot, it's been busy, a lot of really interesting insights on the future of conflict, a lot of really interesting insights on the changing nature of deterrence, the changing nature of computing power, and maybe just the changing nature of our world as we move into this highly contested era where the combination of technology and the real kind of nuts and bolts of visceral warfare that so many guys here are used to is becoming both more important but also something that we're trying to stop. Anyway, I've been Pete Amps, this is SOF Week, and I'll see you again soon.